to divide the idea of the halicha milo milo. So we started speaking about how there are things that are come from below, that is our doing, and there are things that come from above. And we started explaining how in Torah there is the above part versus the below part. The above part is Torah Shabbat, that's unchanging. The below part is Torah Shabbat. This is what we accomplish it. And then the Rebbe started speaking about how even in Torah Shabbat, there is even there are things that we can explain, and there's always new insights, like he was bringing about even in Pshat. Sure, in the Remez, Drush, and there's many insights and many new things that come up, so that we see even in Torah Shabbat, which comes from above. There's still things that come from us, the chidushim of the Talmud. Now he's going to explain how in Torah Shabbal Peh, which normally we say comes from within and from us, still in all there are aspects that are like from above, that they're unchanging. There's nothing what we could add to it and increase. So again, we're holding on page Ches, fourth page of the Maimer, middle of the page, line 18. Mike Kane, and so too Gambatar Shabbat, also in the written Torah. Also in the oral Torah. In addition to the idea that we know that there's everything that a diligent student is going to be, Mechadish was already given by Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai, which means that essentially the diligent student, the Talmud Vasik, didn't really do anything new. He didn't bring anything to the Torah by himself. It's really something that's from above. But still in all, we're saying he is doing. But in addition to that, Yesh Gam Inyan She'ena B'dei Adam, the oral Torah, the Torah Shbal, there's also things that are not in the hands of a person. She'ena Yachol Hashanis Beklum, that the person cannot change those parts of Torah Sheba'al Peh. There are certain parts of Torah Sheba'al Peh that cannot be changed. Zeu Inyan, we see this concerning the Tov, B'dvar Mishnah Chayz. It says Bezdin, rule against something that is as well known and as clear as it's already something that's stated in Mishnayos. So Mishnayos already the clear definition of what the halacha is in the time when the Gemara says it. So if a court made a mistake in the matter of a Mishnah, so the ruling of the court goes back, as opposed to if it was a mistake of something that was, let's say, commonly accepted, or the Gemara Svaras had accepted, and then the Dayan made a mistake about it. That they don't. That's no reason to uproot the ruling and change. So what do we see from that? That there are certain things that are established and they're unchanging. So now the Mishnah part of Torah Sheba'al is something that's from above. It's not up to us. We cannot do anything about it. But the Rebbe adds, even though that rule was true in the times of the Gemara, but this idea of the unchanging nature of Torah Sheba'al continues with further things down the line as more we've advanced further in Torah Sheba'al. So the Rebbe says in line 22, after the Mishnah was sealed, Nasa King Gamet Mishnayis, this is what became by the Amoraim concerning the Mishnayis, meaning that an Amoira could not say something that was in opposition to the Mishnah. And if Amoira said his own svara as logical and as much, support as he was able to bring. If another Amoida said, but the Mishnah says differently, there was two options. Either you have to be able to resolve how the Mishnah did not contradict, which a lot of times the Gemara deals with. Because what the Amoida was saying, what the Mishnah was saying is really totally different situations and so on. But if it was clear that what the Amoida was saying was in contradiction to the Mishnah, his words would fall off because the Mishnah was the final word. In a similar vein, once the Gemara was sealed, once we finished with Talmud Bavli, so then the same thing, the Geonim who followed the period of the Gemara, they could not argue or dispute something that was an explicit Gemara because that's it. It's in the Gemara and we cannot dispute it. So too, it goes in comparison to those that followed them, that, for example, the Achroinim can argue on the Rishonim and so on. Before Bilkas Talmud Torah Lad Morazakin, like it's explained in the laws of Talmud Torah, the Alter Rebbe, Hagdore b'chol ha'inyanim shenachshavim b'chlal Mishnah. The categorization of all things that are called Mishnah that cannot be disputed. What's the point of all this? The point of all this comes out that in Torah Sheba'al Peh there are parts that are, at least now, no more coming from below. It says in line 28, in the oral Torah, there's also that which comes from above. And a person cannot affect in that thing what in whatsoever. He cannot change the Mishnah. We cannot change the Gemara. We cannot change the Rishonim and so on, or go against them or dispute them. And in general, again, we're looking for the different ways of dividing this. What we're saying, another way of dividing what comes from above and what's from below is Torah mitzvahs, top of page test. The Torah is what Hashem revealed from above to below. Like we mentioned yesterday, I spoke from the heavens. Mitzvahs as opposed to mitzvahs, how they call it. The whole idea of mitzvahs is the service of a person from below to above. And in general, you can go even further and you could spread this net even wider. And there's a chiluk ben Torah and mitzvahs. It's the difference between the Torah and the mitzvahs and versus the world. The Torah mitzvahs, nitnimol ma'ila, Torah mitzvahs were given from above by Hashem. Then the world needs to be the service of a person, the work of a person, to elevate it from below to above. And how is that done? Through the ladder that's standing on the ground, and the top of the ladder goes upwards, and through that we are traveling upon that ladder and elevating from below to above. The purpose, the goal, the aim of the Torah is specifically down here below. For this reason, the Torah was not given to Malachim. Malachim said, "No, place your glory upon the heavens." How come? Why were they refused? Like Moshe responded to Malach. The Mitzrayim did you then descend to Egypt? And it says, is there then a Yetzirah amongst you that we have to tell you not to steal and all other things of the Aser Sadibris? What's the point behind it? I know the tapas the Torah. The goal of the giving of the Torah is later Lamata to descend down below, Levada Asylum to refine the world. Va'achi Yard the Gamla Mitzrayim to such a degree that it descended even to Egypt. Kidei Lifoil Ulashanis Iber Machin Gams in the Mitzrayim, to also affect and to change, transform also the idea of Egypt. What does Mitzrayim represent? what it says in the Navi, that it says that I am the Oir, I am the Nile, and I made myself. So that's the ultimate opposite of Elikus. Lamata Yosef meaning the Kadal. This idea of Li Oirivan Yassisini is even lower than another clipper that the Goyim are known for, that they call Hashem the God of gods. In other words, they consider themselves gods, or they have certain gods. And on top of that, Hashem is the God of gods. But Li Oirivan Yassisini means I made myself. There's nothing higher than me. There's nothing above me. The Omar Pari, that Pari said, that under his rule and governance was the land of Mitzrayim. Until he ruled, he was, over the world, over the dome of the world he ruled, which means that his influence and his klipa was something that spread out over the entire world. And Torah came down to deal with that. That's why the Malachim that weren't engaged with Mitzrayim, they had no function to use the Torah. So too, so too, it's what Moshe Rabbeinu told the Malachim, is there, and then a Yetzirah amongst you, to Inyan Tachten B'Yosef, the Yetzirah is the lowest that there is. Now, the Rebbe is going to question that. We know that the Yetzirah is a malach with a mission. He's doing Hashem's work. Both the Satan and Pnina, who was the co-wife of Chana, Shmuel Hanavi's mother, that was the whole time annoying Chana. And the same thing, the Satan, that he's doing his job in troubling a person. And then specifically, he's talking about the Satan in the book of Iyov, that's constantly testing Eve. So their intention was only for good. Nina wanted that Chana should daven hard at Hashem. The Satan wants a Yid to overcome his enticements. But still in all, that's only in the root of the Satan above, that the Satan, it has a high source. The descended down here below, it is in opposition to God. Like the idea of the land of Mitzrayim, top of page Yud, like we said before. And what did Moshe Rabbeinu tell the Malachim about the Torah? That is where the Torah has to be, in Mitzrayim, in the place where there's the Yetzirah. Daf l'sham yard, that Torah specifically down, where it's the lowest place, where there's a Mitzrayim, where there's the Yetzirah, that's where the Torah descended. That's a descent to such a low place that there's nothing lower than it. You mentioned earlier in the Maimer that it's below even the entire category of place. Why is it below place? Because Mokim has to do with Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. Mokim, the numerical equivalent of Mokim 186 is the same numerical equivalent of Yud Kei Vav Kei, each letter squared, 10 times 10, 5 times 5, 6 times 6, and 5 times 5 again equals 186. So therefore, since it's so far removed from godliness, this world, it's lower even than Mokim, which has to do with Yud Kei Vav Kei. So now the Rebbe is going to address the question, Mokim is not Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's only the gematria of Yud Kei Vav Kei. So maybe, true, it's lower than Yud Kei Vav Kei, but maybe it's not lower than Mokim. It says in line 5, Bagam Shezeurak gematria, though it's only a gematria, and not even a direct gematria like other gematrias. You need to double the 10 times 10, 5 times 5, 6 times 6, 5 times 5 again. So it's in gematria itself, it's even at a further remove from the original word of Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's called Zemoirish, the gematria itself, and the different permutations that we add to the gematria show how much more constricted it is and how much more it has to go through further hoops and chain descents and so on. Like that the higher creations were created directly from Hashem's words, Naseres, Sarah, Maris, but in the lower creations, where Hashem's energy is much more concealed, it has to go through gematrias and other types of permutations of the letters. And the more permutations, the more gematrias, the further and more reduced and more limited the godly life forces in those creations. Yet still in all, despite the distance between Makim and Shem Yudke Vavke, because it's a gematria and only a gematria from each letter doubled and so on. We call Makim, it still has some type of connection to the name Yudke Vavke. And therefore, this world of Mitzrayim and this world of Yetzer Hara is something that's not only lower than Yudke Vavke, it's even lower than Makim that has a connection with Yudke Vavke, as tenuous as that connection might be. As opposed to Mitzrayim Yetzer Hara, since they're in opposition to God and is, they are still lower than the category of Mokim in its simple sense, which is a further distance from Shem Yudke Vavke. Still in all, the Torah comes down to these matters. To refine Mitzrayim, to refine the Yetzer Hara. Why is that so? Only through the Torah descending so far below is fulfilled the intention and the purpose of the giving of the Torah. And on page Yud, line 15, all this is accomplished through the Torah coming down from a place that's totally beyond the whole entire category of worlds. So much nischadish, I did matan Torah dafka, that will come about specifically through the giving of the Torah. That it draws down from a place that's beyond the worlds whatsoever. Also prior to matan Torah, the Torah was beyond the worlds. Like Chazal say, that the Torah preceded the worlds by 2,000 years, indicating that the Torah is beyond the world. But why are we saying that Matan Torah brought about this chiddush of the Torah that's beyond the worlds coming down, even before the world was created, even before Matan Torah, the Torah was beyond the worlds. Kol Mokim ein loy mashem loy be'erech lagamri. Before the giving of the Torah, this statement of 2,000 years before the world, the Torah preceded it, we can't say there's no comparison whatsoever, because the very number that you give shows that there is some type of relationship, even though there are distant relations. The preceding of the Torah to the world has a measure, has some type of shear to it, alpine shana. That's 2,000 years. However we explain what that means, it doesn't mean literal years. There was no sense of time, but it's something that's measurable by this description. That means they have some type of connection with the world. As opposed to the giving of the Torah. The Torah came down from that level that says in Shir HaShirim that Mishlei, that I was a plaything, an enjoyable thing by Hashem himself. It was Hashem's personal enjoyment, something completely privy to Hashem, connected with Hashem, that this is his delight and his pleasure. It's beyond the idea of 2,000 years, which also the word shana is molshain shinuyim. So the word changes. So if already, again, you're connecting it with the 2,000 shana, that means it has some type of change. There is some type of differences over here. Because the Torah came down from the level that I, Hashem, am unchanged. So at the beginning of creation, when we say that the Torah precede the world by 2,000 years, but it still has to do with Shana from the word changes. But the level of Matan Torah was from the level of Hashem's own personal delight. It's beyond changing. Afterwards, it comes down to a further level that it says in the pasuk that it was a delight and enjoyment day. This day is the hinting to the Maimer Chazal, and where Chazal derived the word Alpayim Shana. Like it's explained in Mamorim, the 5 different levels that are indicated in this pasuk, where it talks about the level of Etzli Shashuyim and the level of Shashuyim Yom Yom, and there's other expressions in the pasuk that speak about the different transitions and levels that the Torah traveled from and through. Now, this would be understood top of page Yudal Mashamr Hazal, because Chazal said David Nenash also called a divrei Torah b'shem zmiris. David was punished because he called the words of Torah song. It says that when David HaMelech returned the Aron from after being conquered by the Plishtim, and was in the house of the face of and it was on the way being returned, and it was being carried on a wagon, and because of that, it slipped, and someone reached for it, and he died because of it. David HaMelech forgot an open halacha. You're not supposed to take the Aron on the wagon, you're supposed to carry it on your shoulders. Well, all it is was a result. This forgetting of the halacha was because in Tehillim, David HaMelech said, Zmiris hayelichukecha, va'amri zmiris hayelichukecha. He called the Torah song. And the idea of calling songs was considered beneath what Torah was about. Though the idea of the Torah being called songs was actually a very, very high level. He brings it in the commentary on the side. The Mamorim explained this in many different places, that the idea of calling the Torah songs was the idea about how the entire world has no significance in one little halach in the Torah, because if you get one little thing wrong in the Torah, all the amshakas in the world will not come down, which means the entire world is bottled to the Torah. And that was how he was singing the praises of the Torah. The problem was that his songs of praise of the Torah was only in regard to how unbelievable Torah is in comparison to the world. So as great as he was explaining the great honor of Torah and the specialness of Torah, it was still in relationship to the world, which is not the ultimate aspect of Torah. And for David HaMelech, this was considered inappropriate, and that's why he forgot the halacha about carrying the Aron on the shoulder, and because of that, everything else resulted from that. But what do we see again? How Torah is much greater than just its influence and the fact that the entire world is subservient to it. He says in line 4, Mikal Mokim still in all, the fact that the entire world is considered insignificant and dependent upon one detail in the Torah is still, that's not the great advantage and quality of the Torah. The main mile is it being drawn down from the level I will be by him, Shashuyim, and I will be a plaything by Hashem, like we mentioned before. That's way higher. Hashem's essence is way higher in the world. And the Mamorim that speak about this topic, about David HaMelech calling it Zmiris, and the problem with that, say, just like praising Hashem, that Hashem is greater in the world, is almost like an insult for Hashem, because Hashem is beyond being compared to the world. And just say that the entire world is dependent upon Hashem, and that is Hashem's greatness. That's not Hashem's greatness. Hashem's greatness is completely removed from the world. same thing, the essence of Torah, which is connected with the essence of Hashem, is completely removed from the world, and you can't even praise it by saying, the highest and the life force of the entire energy of the world is dependent upon if you did this and this halacha right. So, for example, if you were offered a karbonis, the karbonis bring down all the hamshachas into the world. And if the kohen, instead of taking it with his right hand, he took the blood, the sprinkle with his left hand, already the whole carbon, the whole avodah was invalidated if he did it in such type of way, and the whole hamshachas of the worlds are dissipated. So we see how Torah, how the world is insignificant in comparison to Torah. But that is, in a way, almost like insulting to compare the Torah to the worlds and say how insignificant the Torah is to the world, because the Torah is so much higher than the world, and that is what was revealed by Matan Torah, that higher level of Torah, the Torah, the way it's joined with Hashem's Es, Hashuyim Etzler. It goes on nice hey line 8, Alfia on my point, what we said before. The drawing down of the Torah from the most highest level, specifically down here below. Yuvan we understood the reason Sheikra Yudim Baksum and Pakasayim Yudim Gashman, that the main promises of what was foretold in our parsha is primarily about physical things, physical promises, things about you will have the rains and you will have the crops, etc., etc. Why is this of significance? It's not understood. Like the famous note that the Rebbe Rashab mentions in the minor Koisa of the year Tavish Lamakval, why were we told physical promises for the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs? The physical influences, the physical flow of blessings that's connected to the external part of the world, they are already included in the fact that when Hashem took Noach out of the Teva, he promised him and he made a covenant that the worlds will keep on running. He said that there will not cease anymore the natural course of things. During the Mabul, the seasons stopped, the day and night stopped, and Hashem promised Noach that the seasons were going on. And we know that this was all al-kiyum chitzonius ha'olamas. The promise that Hashem made to Noach was for the existence of the external aspects of the world. Like it says, all the days of the earth, Zerav, sowing and harvest, will not cease. So therefore, what's the promise? What's the big deal that we're making on something that was already promised to Noach? You do Torah mitzvahs, you'll get these physical things. That's the most external thing. The Rebbe adds in line 18, you could add his explanation of the question that he asked in Samach Vov, the idea that it will not cease concerning the existence of the external part of the world. Is that in the times the promise for Noach was nothing about an inner hamshachah. Only before Matan Torah could there be a promise for the external worlds. That's it. Also, before the giving of Torah, there was a decree that those above should not ascend below, and those below should not ascend below. That means the one above does not go out of its lane, does not interact, and does not influence and mix together with the below. Therefore, in our world, before the giving of the Torah, the only reward that was possible was a physical reward. It's impossible to live in this physical world and have anything to do with the spiritual worlds because they're disconnected. So you can't talk about a spiritual reward. But that was all before Matan Torah. Once we find ourselves after the giving of the Torah, after the ceasing of the decree that separated the high worlds from the lower worlds, especially when there's this service in the way of my statutes. When this itself in the way of you shall go, in other words, in the way of traveling and so on. Like we said, then it could be, and it should be the reward in spiritual matters because that demarcation was separated. Okay, mitzvahs there was not understood why there was physical promises given for the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. I'm going to stop over here.